Hold up your dominant hand. Without thinking, you probably raised your right one. In fact, there's about a 90% chance you did. Across every continent, every culture, every language, and every period of recorded history, one strange pattern keeps appearing. Almost everyone prefers their right hand. You write with it, eat with it, throw with it, shake hands with it. It feels so natural that most of us never stop to ask the obvious question. Why? Why isn't it 50-50? Why didn't evolution produce equal numbers of right-handed and left-handed people? And perhaps the strangest question of all, when did humanity decide that the right hand would become the dominant one? The answer takes us back long before cities, before farming, before language, and even before our own species existed. Imagine standing in Europe around 130,000 years ago. A Neanderthal sits beside a fire, carefully scraping an animal hide with a sharp stone tool. The hide is stretched tightly between one hand and his teeth. Every now and then, the sharp tool slips, leaving tiny scratches across the front of his teeth. To him, those scratches mean nothing. But more than 100,000 years later, archaeologists would discover those same microscopic marks and realize they were pointing in one direction. Most of those scratches could only have been made if the tool was held in the right hand. That meant something extraordinary. Neanderthals, our closest extinct relatives, were mostly right-handed too. The evidence didn't stop there. Similar tooth scratches have been found on fossils of Homo heidelbergensis, who lived around 500,000 years ago. Even more surprising, researchers discovered the same pattern in a Homo habilis fossil nearly 1.8 million years old. That means the preference for the right hand may have appeared incredibly early in human evolution, long before civilization, long before agriculture, perhaps even before our ancestors fully looked like us. But why would such a preference evolve in the first place? The answer may lie inside the most complicated object in the known universe, the human brain. Although our brains look symmetrical from the outside, they are anything but identical. The left hemisphere controls the right side of your body, while the right hemisphere controls the left. More importantly, the left hemisphere specializes in language, planning, and precise movement. Every time you write your name, thread a needle, or use a screwdriver, billions of neurons inside the left side of your brain coordinate those tiny movements with astonishing precision. Over millions of years, as our ancestors became better at making stone tools, building shelters, and eventually developing language, the left hemisphere became increasingly specialized for these complex tasks. And because the left hemisphere controls the right hand slowly became humanity's preferred tool. But if that's true, why do left-handed people still exist? For decades, scientists searched for a left-handed gene. Surely something so common had to be controlled by a single piece of DNA. But despite studying millions of people, no such gene was ever found. Instead, researchers discovered that handedness is influenced by dozens, perhaps even hundreds, of genes working together, combined with environmental factors before and after birth. Even identical twins who share nearly identical DNA don't always have the same dominant hand. Genetics loads the dice, but it doesn't decide the final outcome. And yet, left-handed people make up roughly 10% of humanity almost everywhere on Earth. That's remarkably stable. If left-handedness offered no advantage, evolution should have gradually removed it. If it were better than being right-handed, its numbers should have increased. Instead, it has remained balanced for thousands of generations. Why? Imagine you're a warrior thousands of years ago. You've spent your entire life fighting right-handed opponents. Every attack you expect comes from one direction. Then, suddenly, you face someone who fights with their left hand. Every instinct you've developed becomes slightly less reliable. Every movement feels unfamiliar. In life or death combat, even a tiny advantage can determine who survives. Today, we see the same pattern in sports. Left-handed boxers, fencers, tennis players, and baseball pitchers often outperform expectations because their opponents have far less experience competing against them. Being different becomes an advantage precisely because it is evidence for ancient handedness appears in another unexpected place: cave art. Tens of thousands of years ago, artists placed one hand against a cave wall and blew pigment over it through hollow reeds, creating colorful hand stencils. Thousands of these handprints survive today across Europe, Indonesia, Argentina, and Australia. Curiously, the overwhelming majority are left hands. Why? Because the artists were holding the pigment tube in their right hand, while pressing their left hand against the wall. Even our oldest art quietly records humanity's preference for the right hand. But humans aren't the only animals with a preferred side. Chimpanzees, our closest living relatives, show slight hand preferences, but as a species, they are almost evenly split. No overwhelming majority exists. Interestingly, some kangaroos also favor one side while standing upright, suggesting that walking on two legs may have encouraged stronger hand specialization. Still, no other primate comes close to the consistency seen in humans. Something unique happened during our evolutionary journey that made handedness a defining feature of our species. Perhaps the most fascinating part is that handedness influences far more than writing or throwing a ball. Studies suggest it may affect how our brains process language, solve problems, remember information, and even recover from injury. Left-handed people often show more communication between the two hemispheres of the brain, while right-handed people typically have stronger specialization. Neither system is universally better. They are simply different solutions to the same evolutionary challenge. So, why are almost all humans right-handed? Because millions of years ago, our ancestors began making increasingly sophisticated tools. Brains became more specialized, concentrating fine motor control inside the left hemisphere. That specialization favored the right hand. Genetics helped preserve the pattern, while the occasional left-handed individual survived, because being different sometimes offered an unexpected advantage. Evolution never aimed to eliminate left-handedness. It simply kept the balance that worked best. The next time you pick up your phone, sign your name, or wave goodbye with your right hand, remember this. That simple movement is part of a story nearly 2 million years old. A story written not in books, but in fossil teeth, cave paintings, ancient stone tools, and the remarkable evolution of the human brain. Every time you reach out with your dominant hand, you're repeating a habit that began long before history itself, and one that still shapes almost every human alive today.